Good afternoon. Welcome to Catalyst for the Trades podcast. I'm your host, Jennifer Bagley. I'm having a rough day today. I'm exhausted. Okay, I'm going to disclose this before we get started because I feel like it's fair. I took my mom out on date night last night and she was having a little bit too much fun, and I'm feeling it today. I should say we was having a little too much fun. So I'm hurt, right? But I'm so happy, you guys. Today, I have a very, very special guest with me, which is Seth Humble, who's the Director of Production for CI Web Group and over our customer success. You guys, this is a real treat because he doesn't get out of the cave a lot with the entire team. He's got quite an enormous team of people and has been very instrumental in helping our company transition over the last year with AI search and new technology, new teams, new everything else. Seth, I'm curious first, tell us a little bit about your background and your history in the industry. And you also have some, I'm going to say it's not a secret, you're also a well-published author and amazing.
Thank you. So a little bit about me. I'm a speculative fiction author. I've been doing that for 20 years. I have multiple series of books published in both horror and sort of speculative fiction. So that's pretty neat. But originally I come by way of deep West Texas, an oil country in a place called the Permian Basin, which is currently the largest producer of energy via crude oil in the world. I worked out in the oil field for a time. I'm the son of a oil field worker, and I made my way out of West Texas as fast as I could. Was able to go to college where I thought I was going to be a minister in a church, and then my life sort of changed, and I made my way through a smattering of different technical jobs until I got to SEO about 11 years ago. I have been doing SEO up until about, a year ago, where we moved my specialization over from SEO into things like AI integration and also taking care of our company production pipeline for the many, many valuable clients who entrust us with being able to build their public-facing image online, which we take with a great amount of seriousness and a depth of respect for all of the companies who provide home service industries, and who need their. I firmly believe that industries like the home services industries, they're the type of things that keep the spine of the American economy straight. They're jobs that are essential; they'll never go away, and they require a great amount of technical acumen that requires a certain skill set that I deeply respect. And so that's sort of my journey in a nutshell, from what is it, as it says in David Copperfield, what can I say? I was born, I grew up, right? And so here I am.
I love that. So what have you noticed over the last 2 years? How, I think that it's been interesting to watch everybody with experience and without experience try and tackle some of the changes. How deep are those changes with AI and compared to the last 11 years? And I'll go a little further. What do you anticipate is going to change, and how hard is this transition for, people like you, our technical SEO team, our development team, and the businesses that we serve?
So to start with, the sort of the primary focus where I started was in SEO. One of the only historical example that I can liken to it is the difference between the moment when we were in the industrial age to the moment we went into the atomic age. That sort of quantum leap forward, where the Manhattan Project changed everything about the entire shape of the world. Like what people vested power in, what people thought was important, was all of a sudden, it doesn't matter how fast your steamboat goes if we can power a nuclear sub, right? So we have seen, I would say over the last 2 years, I would say since probably May of 2024,
Yeah.
is probably that was probably when there was, I think it was Google rolled out they rolled out AIO, or AI optimization. They rolled that out, and then I think they forecasted this is going to gather 1 billion people by the end of the year. And of course, it hit that mark, right? And so we saw a lot of people who were working in my field in SEO, they still thought that everything was going to keep tracking the same way. They thought that, hey, this is a thing. It's going to change some things, but pretty much we're just going to be like, our industry is just going to adapt to it. And I don't think adaptation is a strong enough word for what's needed to happen over the last 2 years. Evolving is probably the right word for it. AI search over at least the last year it's the single greatest adoption of a new technology in modern history. The only thing that I can really think akin to it is how popular the printing press became in 1477, when everybody was like, wow, we don't have to have 1,000 monks scribing all these things down if we can just do a set type press, right? But I would say one of the things that's really interesting to me is that SEO has turned into something that has evolved into, because there's a lot of doomsayers out there who are like, SEO is over, like this is the death knell for it. But in truth, SEO and the ability to optimize your website and your client experience or your customer experience around a clear vision of who you are, what problem you solve, and how you solve it differently than everybody else. That's effectively all SEO has ever been, based upon an auction-based system where originally for SEO with Google, it was based on backlinks of merit, right? That's how we said what was going to be authoritative, what wasn't going to be authoritative. And then Google said, well, we can't keep doing that because people are going off page from Google, and that means we stop making money, right? Mm-hmm. And so those tactics changed. What became important changed. And so instead of it being an authority-based system, it was a delivery-based system of value, right? And that has sort of been co-opted into a sense of that is right now where AI search is, which is tell me exactly. So the SERP has stopped being a question machine and it's become a solution merchant, right? Mm-hmm. And those are two very, very different things, right? Mm-hmm. The AI allows you to refine your own search, while the algorithm used to refine your search for you based upon the searches that millions of other people had done, but if you were around the same intent. So what it offers for the user is an experience that is less like a buffet and more like a butler or a chef who's saying, I'll let you tell me what you want and I'll be able to provide you the solution to your problem, and not in the form of clicking and searching and reading. And I'm a huge advocate of reading and for as much as possible. But however, for most people who their most valuable commodity in their life, like anyone, is time, right? And the more time that I can save, the more valuable a product that saves my time is going to be to me. Like we talk about this all the time with our clients, and that is like, what are some of the differentiators between you and Bob's HVAC, right? Mm-hmm. Well, we do 24/7 service. Rain, snow, sleet, or hail, we're going to be there, right? So that's a differentiator. When we talk to those clients about those things, well, tell me about what are your service calls like, right? How long does it take for your customer service representative to close a deal? How fast can they identify a problem? We can take them through coaching and say, the quicker you can prove to solve your customer's problem, the higher likelihood you're going to turn that hot lead into a conversion, right? And that's something that AI is helping people with. And that's only because the more personalization. So if I have an AI named Valentine who knows the type of things that I like, he is integrated into my platforms that are important to me. And I can coach Valentine to help me live the life that I want to live and help me save the time that I really want to save. Because I don't want to be on the phone with someone if I don't have to be, right?
Mm-hmm.
Certainly not in the current information age that we're living in. When people want to be more and more and more productive, it means the more and more time that you can save them, the higher price they're willing to pay in order to use your product.
Mm-hmm.
And Google knows that, ChatGPT knows that, everybody knows that. So it's sort of like I would reference it in akin to about 600 years ago, all the empires of the world, they were trying to find more and more land, right? Everybody was trying to find where are all the resources. In the information age, there is only one resource, that's people's time, right? And
Right.
all of these agentic, or I should say LLMs, they're trying to expand their reach to see how many people can we have adopt our LLM to solve their problems so that they will remain customers on this platform for as long as possible, right? Because that's how eventually they will start generating revenue. I know that's a really long-winded way to answer a single question.
Well, I think I put multiple
Yeah.
questions in there, so you did a good job. You did a good job. It's so what do you think well, let me back up.
Mm-hmm.
We've obviously had to change our entire approach, everything. If you were to list out from your historical process of building a website and generating the content and doing SEO compared to now, what's the sequence of major initiatives and changes we've had to make, and what's the value of those changes or the performance on traditional search as well as AI search? Because we've been kind of tackling this like a big giant ice block.
Right.
And
chipping and chipping and chipping, right?
Chipping and chipping. And sometimes we're taking multiple people and chipping at the same time, cross-departmentally and whatnot. But what are the biggest shifts that we've made in the last 18 months compared to even your prior history with other agencies? And what's the impact of this? What have we learned?
Man, oh man. To use your metaphor, Michelangelo said whenever he would look at a block of stone, he would see the figure trapped inside of it, right? So whenever he was working on the Pieta or the Michelangelo or the Moses, he would be able to look at that block of stone and see the vision of the thing living inside of it. And I think that's what we as a company have been desperately working toward over the last 18 months. We have integrated AI platforms that not only allow us, what they do is they take the human aspect of all of the expertise that exists inside of their many wonderful people who work for the company, and it allows them to not only work faster, it allows them to work more effectively. So the areas where their expertise can really help a client's account shine, they're able to do that thing more, and they're able to do it better, and they're able to do it faster, right? One of the big aspects, and one has always been a big challenge in SEO, is how much research can you do in order to see where your competitors are, what keyword phrases are important at any given moment, because they can change. And that used to be based around we'll have to set it and see where we're at in 3 months and see, then we'll alter our keyword phrases and see if we can win for those, and we'll build content around that. And right now, with the initiatives that we put into the company, those things no longer, it's the difference between the wheel and the rocket ship, right? And one of those things, and there's nothing wrong with the wheel. The wheel still gets us around from time to time. And I know we've talked about this a little bit.
How the wheels fall off.
Right, how the wheels can fall off, right. And I know that there's a lot of trepidation that exists around LLMs. And I think that that's a natural human response. To go back to, my example about the difference between the industrial age and the atomic age. When they developed the rocket system, the V2 rocket system, there were two responses to that. And that was, some people decided to build bomb shelters because they wanted to try and survive this event, right, that they were afraid of. And then other people saw that same thing and they built rocket ships that went up. They didn't go down into the earth. And that for us has been our primary goal as a company, is that not only do I want everyone, all of our clients, to be on this ship to go to the moon, right? To have a moonshot. But as a company, we're trying to develop a system that when we get to the moon, I already want to have built the fuel that's going to take us to Mars.
Yep.
Right. And AI has allowed us to fundamentally, when we change the speed at which we can adapt as a company, it not only makes us better SEO experts, right? With the amount of research that LLMs can help us with, especially with deep agent research, that we're able to train ourselves, put the expertise of all of the years from every single one of our human experts. We can train these things to do that research for us. Makes us highly adaptable. It makes us capable of moving at a great speed, and we can be more certain, right? Because the more research that we're able to achieve in a shorter amount of time, it allows us to make a more informed decision. And so much of previous SEO, previously in SEO, especially when things were a bit nip and tuck before the refinement of Google Search Console. And then we went through, well, there's Google Analytics and there's Google Analytics 2. Now there's GA4 and there's all these things. You're like, and every time Google changed the way that we could see the data, there was always having to be a moment where, like, how do I piece together all of my old like reports? How do I see, what does an impression mean to me now? Where impressions 2 years ago were like, don't worry so much about impressions. That's not such a big deal. We want to be looking at like sessions. That's what we're about. Yeah. How much time did they spend on page, right? And now that is complete. It hasn't flipped, but impressions are now deeply important to show how many of these LLMs are crawling your website, finding you, and putting you on an AI search. Right. And those things are only possible when you change your agency from being revolving around marketing, and you start you focus well, it's not just technology, but when we ask ourselves, what does success look like? In the 1950s and 60s, a marketing agency was all about catchy slogan, guys with cigarettes in back rooms saying, you know, it's a great idea, skip this one. Right. Right. And they would all be guessing. Yeah. Right. And they would all be guessing. Right. And sometimes some of those people were very good at guessing. Right. But as marketing has shifted towards technology based and being able to refine what people actually find valuable, AI has presented us the ability to it's like being able to throw a dart not across a room and hit a bullseye. It's like being able to throw a dot across the solar system and hit a mountain on top of Neptune. It's that pinpoint accurate. And the development of those technologies and the embracing of those technologies, it's the difference between the lightning bug and the lightning bolt, as Mark Twain would say, right?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. We're not even the same company. I feel like we're a startup.
Right.
And we're operating more as a tech company with business intelligence at scale, quantum computing, which is so interesting. But it does feel like we just started over.
Right. And it does, that is the thing. The great thing about us starting over means that the companies that we service, they don't have to do the starting over. We've already done it for you. Right. We've piled together months and months and months of research, of trial and error, trying things, every single possibility. What could work better, right? What can work faster for us? And that's only comes about when you have the bravery. One of the things we talk about in agile development, we talk about transparency, bravery, courage to be able to say, it's okay to fail. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. We'll find something that will work, right? And I love working at a company. Yeah, you get a lot of cuts at the plate. And I love working at a company that's willing to take risks, right? I think it's boring. And I think, not to put too fine a point on it, but if you're operating in an old SEO structure and an old research structure where you you have 20 people all trying to do the research that an AI or that an LLM, a trained LLM can do in 30 seconds what it takes your 20-person team a week and a half to do, right?
Mhm.
It's just simply not what success looks like for the future. And that's not to disparage other agencies from doing what they think is best. It is only that if you don't see the future, it will fly right past you, leaving you in the past, right? And your agency model won't work. You have to be a platform, right? You have to be,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
And so
100%.
you have to be willing to, and that means, and this is a big thing for, I think certainly for our senior director of growth, Jasmine, for being willing to get on calls with clients and being willing to say, everything's about to change, but that's okay because we're here to help it. We're here to help you change with it. And it's going to be scary because all change is scary, right?
Mhm.
But the main thing is like, hey, but don't pull a ripcord, right? We're in a little, it's going to feel like we're in a free fall, but don't worry. This isn't a free fall. This is a controlled dive,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I'm sure as a CEO, you know, that we're deeply proud of the work that the account managers do in order to tell clients, we understand where everything is headed, right? Take my hand. It's going to be dark for a minute, but that's okay. I'm a lantern lighter.
We got you.
Right.
Yeah, I agree with that. What is your thoughts on the technology infrastructure? So just web. We made an enormous move from WordPress to Webflow.
Mm-hmm.
We've been a WordPress agency for 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
I know I got a lot of flack for it. Pretty sure everyone thought you're freaking crazy.
Right.
What have you noticed? It's obviously requires significantly more skill to be able to build an AI enabled low code environment. You
Mm-hmm.
can't buy a $45 theme off of Forest or off of Theme Forest and then go
Right.
download 30 plugins from the
Mm-hmm.
internet and like, you know, put the site together like Legos. It's more complicated.
Right.
But is it worth it? What have you noticed?
It's absolutely worth it for a couple of reasons. Um, Number one, when you put together a website like Legos, right? That means the stability of the thing can get kicked over in the middle of the night. Now all the pieces are everywhere. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean, and again, WordPress has had its issues. Those have been public, right? But the security vulnerability right now for WordPress websites, because of all of the plugins required in order to make your site technically excellent, and adding all those things on affects your performance. So now you have to ask yourself, what's more important to me, security or speed? But
Mm-hmm.
with a platform like Webflow, you don't have to ask yourself that question, right?
Mm-hmm.
The refinement. Who was it? I think it was. I think it's Archimedes who said. No, it's Aristotle who says that the beauty or the genius of a thing is found not in its complexity, but in its simplicity. And low code websites that allow things to perform at a high rate of speed, but also have high security protection. And that means that their performance is greater, which means Google will see the value of that higher grade performance. Does that mean a WordPress website can't rank? Absolutely not. Right? If your content and your user experience is excellent, you can rank. But why try to rank with one handcuffed behind your back?
Mm-hmm.
Right? There's no reason to do that. And I would encourage folks when you're talking, if you're not a CI Web Group client, I would hope you have a really good relationship with your web developer and say, hey, talk to me about what it would mean for us to move to Webflow.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to me about what are our security vulnerabilities? What does success look for us? What does success look like for us moving forward with these low code websites? How important is it? And I would hope that they would be able to have a transparent conversation with those developers, and the developers would be able to say, you're going to have to move eventually. It's just about when you want to pull the trigger, because blocky websites that have that many security vulnerabilities, that have that amount of technical debt when they're trying to be crawled and then indexed, like those things matter. They absolutely matter. And That's why, like, did we make a bold statement about moving to Webflow? We sure did. Were we a little bit ahead of the curve? Maybe a lot ahead of the curve. But it does, but I would rather be the first person and on the way to the gold rush to California and have to find all the gold, rather than be the person who's in the middle of the gold rush and then has to fight everybody else to get the gold. Like, I'd rather be there first. I'd rather settle an undiscovered country. For me, that's more exciting, right? Does it mean that, there are going to be challenges? Sure. Hardship's a part of the game, but I mean, if it wasn't hard, like, the hard is what makes it great.
Yeah, right? I agree with that. So migrating to Webflow, we made another bold move and we decided to test what would happen if we rethought the way that we generate content and structure the site. And we challenged the team. I remember having the conversation with you and I was like, so what if, I don't know for how long, but we need to test what would happen. We have them in Webflow. We were already rewriting the content that they were bringing over and expanding it and making it better so we'd meet the EAT requirements. But what if we were to expand the content we were writing for them and just include every single service, every single city, and every combination there is? And I remember sitting with you and I saw your brain calculator turn on and you're like, hang on a minute. So that would be like, if they were plumbing and HVAC and electrical, and you had 7 services for every single service within that, and you had them in 30 or 40 or 50 cities, and you're saying you want to do all of those and then times each other. And I remember looking at your face like, you want to do what?
I beg your pardon?
Do what?
Right? I'm sorry. One more time? Right.
I saw your mask on. Like,
I know. And I know. And when we start talking about exponential amounts of content, that's a scary thing. Like, just to be, perfectly honest, like, that's a scary thing to be like, yeah, but what if we just did everything? Right. And I think that is a big swing. And I think that taking big swings matters. And I think that the willingness to be able to take risks the most important question that for me, that a product manager, or there are 2 of them, that a product manager asks are, what problem are we trying to solve? That's number 1, right? And then, but the other one is, what if, right? What if we lived in a world where the content that we wrote was so vast and it was so, what if it lived inside of an environment that when Google saw it, it was like, this website covers everything. This is valuable for every single person in all of these cities who are going to need these services, right? And then there was the other part of that conversation, which, hey, what about keyword clustering, right? What about that strategy, right? But we took it in another direction in a way that
we're going to get it done. That was
right.
Another.
And then how are we going to get all this content?
Sure, there was a budget and how many resources do I get discussion and
right.
In what time? So, what's it going to cause in delays? And it's going to take us longer to get sites done. These are all fair questions. And is it worth it?
Is it worth it? Is that the question?
That was one of them when we were going through.
Was the risk it worth the biscuit, as they say? And I think the answer, bearing out and looking at the performance of the websites that have used that content environment, I would say absolutely. I would. Is it a bigger lift at the front end or at the middle portion of production? It absolutely is. But
I remember at some point asking you guys how many pages you had in your production queue, and it was over 1 million.
Yes, that is correct. There were 1 million pages, right? Which is a big number, right?
That's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work, but those stressors, when they show up, allow a team to adapt, right? They force us, big problems force us to think outside of the box, right? And it requires us to adapt. And so we said, what would it mean? if we hired 10,000 people to write a page a day, right, we could get through all this content, and I don't know how long that would take, right? But that's a big chunk into payroll, right?
Yeah.
And so you have to think, how do we do this? How do we work smarter, not harder, right? How do we become more efficient? How do we refine ourselves? And not just the company, but every single person who's working within that company. How do I refine myself? How do I reach, right? How do I find what you could call sort of the Icarus point, right? That point where you sail all the way to the sun and you've built the wings that are strong enough to be able to reach out and scoop out a portion of sunlight. That's where you want to be, right? Mm-hmm. And that for me is like is the biggest driving target for what we're doing, because there's a lot of strategies that they're waxing wings. They're gonna melt and you're gonna fall. Mm-hmm. But if you refine and you dare to fly high and dare to strive, you can get to that place where, the space between you and your goal, it shrinks and shrinks and shrinks until you reach that point. And that for me that's professional nirvana. Like I just love that to pieces.
I've had 5 strategy sessions this morning talking to new companies. These were all roofing companies. And 100% of them, well, from the last 3 weeks, 100% of the strategy sessions that I've had, every company is dealing with what they think is declining demand or performance. And they think it's due to economy and interest rates. Whereas if you compare our clients that are growing, mm-hmm. and their impressions are up hundreds of thousands, their views, their sessions, their calls, and so forth, there's obviously, I've tried to explain it like there's a whole group of human beings that used to eat at this restaurant, and over the last couple months, they stopped eating there, and they're now eating at this other restaurant you don't even know exists. So it doesn't mean there's less people eating. Mm-hmm. It just means they moved, and you're not positioning yourself in front of them. And it's been interesting because literally companies, I'm watching them convince themselves that this is an impossible economy, that the business isn't there, people don't want to spend, their roof is leaking and they don't want to fix it, or their HVAC system's not running and they're not going to spend the money because of interest rates or because they're fearful of spending money right now. From your vantage point, because you get to see both, is that the case? Is demand actually down, or has it shifted?
No, I think it's shifted. I think now I should be very clear. I'm not an expert in economy, right? But I do, as a team, as a company, we keep our finger pretty close on the pulse about where things are at in terms of the economic factors that really matter, right? Is family spending actually down in your area? This can depend vastly on where you are located in the country, right? I think we are seeing a shift in the way that people find their solutions. And if you're not in that space where people find their solutions, then you are effectively a gas station on a road to nowhere, right? We need to at least get to a point where your ability to show up in these population centers that are moving way faster. Like if you think about it, it was only 20 years ago that social media came and took over everything. And all of a sudden people started getting recommendations on social media. Like, like everyone's flying and giving referrals. So now all of a sudden Meta's, or at the time Facebook, what if we did advertisements? Because now everybody's talking about these things. What if you generate? And that was still revolving around authority, right? Social media is no longer that space. And then it was the SERP. You can find whatever you want in this space, right? And now it's shifting to AI search. And if you're not in an LLM's ability to show up, and I don't know if the word is rank, And I think that's going to become more and more of an outdated term.
Yep.
But if you are discoverable by
Yep.
both the reputation of your service, which for practical purposes means your GBP has to be updated, responded to, reviews need to be coming in with high velocity, high quality. That is a factor. We know that. Your website, does it tell clearly the LLM, this is who I am, this is the problem I solve, this is what you should expect when you get me to solve your problem, and here is typically what I cost. Those factors, if your website becomes a content, a repository of who you are, and you take into account some other things like having a low-coded website and having a partnership with a company that cares enough to be able to move you in that direction, to help guide you along that way, then that's how you're going to find yourself in those spaces in the coming future, especially with things like when LLMs become AI assistants.
Yeah.
Because that's where it's headed.
Yeah, 100%. Last thing, I know we're getting close to time. Chris is doing a good job reminding us. Yesterday, we launched have you seen our AI search visibility reports yet? You have seen it?
I have seen it, yes.
Okay. So I saw it yesterday. We launched, which essentially is tracking the most common queries, conversations on. Right now we're set up on 3. So I think we're monitoring Claude, Gemini, and GPT. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
So we're monitoring those platforms to understand the conversations that are being had from consumers with AI. And then we're monitoring, based on those conversations, where our client's brand is mentioned as a solution to the query or conversation, and where they're competitors. Right. And that's now becoming the feeding ground that's training our content writing agentic network to develop additional content to try and get our clients' brands to be mentioned. What do you think the power is of having that kind of visibility at the tip of your fingers day by day? And what do you think the impact will be? Because this rolled out yesterday. So not all of our clients, if you guys are looking at your content, don't have it yet. It's coming. Give it a minute.
It's on the way. Right.
What is your thoughts of the power of that? It's almost like being able to see search volume and CPC and so forth by keyword, right?
Right. In real time. In real time.
In real time. Today.
And I think I want us to all to imagine a world. What if you'd been able to go through your entire schooling experience, that while you were taking the test, you were able to say, is it A, B, C, or D? And you put your finger on B and it goes, it's not that one. And you go C and it goes, it's that one. And it's literally giving you the answers while you are taking the test. That's the type of world we can live in. What if we could live in a world where we knew immediately how effective we were being across the major LLMs? And that's the world we live in, right? Right now, with that tool, we're able to course correct, not wait for someone to be like, well, I have a meeting with a client and we don't love the numbers that we're seeing. What we'll be able to say is, hey, hey, Jen, we saw on your HVAC website that you weren't trending in the right direction for ChatGPT. We saw it the day that it started happening. We followed it for 24 hours, and then we changed our strategy based upon that. That is adaptability so fast it feels like foresight, right? Mm-hmm. And that's what we want to be. We want to be the company that's able to tell you it's more important, or at least it's more exciting to me, to be a company who doesn't have to always say, here's where you were for last month, but we're a company that's able to say, here's where we are and here is where we're going. That's more exciting for entrepreneurs. It's more, and it's honestly a better conversation than focusing on the past, because we're an agency that is living for the future while doing the work today, I would say.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Okay, I have one more question.
Sure.
as someone who managed SEO teams for a very, very long time, one of the struggles I've always had running an agency has been wanting to know what needs to get done, how do we prioritize it, what got done, versus I feel like as an agency owner, I've always had to, when I'm trying to understand how we're progressing or what we've done or what worked on, I feel like I could go into Asana and get, a project list of kind of these bold topics like researched metadata or evaluated blah, 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 or did a technical analysis. And it was these really broad kind of like assess or evaluate or refine, all these
big verbs,
right?
Right.
Compared to where we are now and being able to see exactly what needs to be done, not because it's in an SOP and it's a checkbox in Asana,
right,
a project management system, but because the AI has went out and evaluated what you're competing with, the SERPs, the AI engines, and evaluated what you have, and then it's continually making recommendations to be able to compete with, not check off a list of SEO tasks, but the modifications that are necessary in order to compete based on the competitors and the SERPs and the algorithm changes and the AI engines today. Like, from your vantage point in managing a team of SEOs, what's the difference from an accountability standpoint and the difference for clients wanting to know? Don't just pull analytics and show me where we are.
Right. And here's the difference. In the former version of that, you are basing your success based on outputs, right? How many check marks did Tony get in the SEO column today, right? And excuse me, what I want to be focused on is not outputs, but outcomes. And when we're able to have an agentic network that helps us understand these outputs need to be done, bang, they're done. So now all of the expertise of all of your humans, they can look at the effect. They can look at the outcome, which then tells us, here's how we were successful for you, right? Here are all of the pieces of data that we funnel together and then use our human experience and discernment to be able to say, this is the best way forward, right? AI can do a lot of things. It's really great at accomplishing goal-based tasks, but you still need someone piloting the ship, right? There's not an autopilot, at least not yet. And that level of human discernment that can only be refined by way of things like experience and a willingness to remain deep inside of the current happenings of an industry like SEO or the HVAC industry or the economy revolving around people spending money on HVAC systems, right? That's when your AI makes your wonderful humans a force multiplier, and it makes them not less valuable, but exceedingly more valuable, I would say.
I agree. I love being able to log in and know not just the results, but I do love being able to see what exactly got done.
Yeah.
And then I can ask questions like, what made you prioritize those things first? What made those first things we tackled this month? Because it's no longer a vague verb. It is practical actions, step by step, day by day, knowing what was deployed, what was not deployed. A new world we're living in. So with this, what would you leave for our audience? What would you encourage them to, kind of summing everything up? Today, tomorrow, what would you recommend?
I would say that Isaac Asimov, in one of his great works of science fiction, one of the things that he says is, one day you will wake up and realize you are living in the future. And you are. Every person who woke up today, you are living in a future that in the 1990s and the early aughts, these were things that people were dreaming about, right? And the great thing about living in that world is that you're living in a world that is rife with change, absolutely. But that change represents an opportunity. And I would advise, whether you're one of our clients or you're someone else's client, I would simply wake up every day and say, how can I shape my dream in the future that I'm living in? Right. And be bold and be willing to say, like, whatever you are living in a world where whatever you dream, you can truly build. And all it takes sometimes is finding the right people to build that dream with. So I would advise people, what can I do today? Right. That's what I would ask myself. Yeah.
I love that. I love that. Seth, it's been amazing having you on. Thank you for stepping away from all your peeps and your 280 projects.
Right. Right.
Thank you so much. I always enjoy talking with you. And thank you for leading and being willing to pivot and change,
Of course.
and evolve, and drag the troops with you, kicking and screaming.
Right. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And for everybody that's watching, you guys, thank you for taking an hour, 45 minutes out of your time today. I know your schedules are busy, so we appreciate you being with us. Of course, subscribe to the channel, drop us a comment, and feel free to throw out questions. You guys can find us on juststartai.io. Join the community. It's a safe space to ask lots of questions. Thank you, Krista. And I would throw out, get comfortable being uncomfortable, because that's where greatness happens. With that, we're out of here. Thank you.